Hey guys, this is Howie from CanadaVapes.com. Today we are going to be taking apart an atomizer and showing you all the cool parts inside so you can kind of understand how it works. So what I've done is, I'm not an artist, but I've drawn a very basic demonstration of what is inside. You obviously see at the very bottom, this is just the casing. Inside the casing there's going to be a metal mesh in a cylindrical shape that is going to house the plastic coil housing, and the plastic coil housing actually houses the coil, and the coil is the most important component of the atomizer. It's the thing that heats up and changes the liquid into a vapor. So this coil sits inside the plastic housing, and the plastic housing sits inside the metal mesh, and then you have the wires here that connect to the coil. Right above the coil you have a wick, and a wick is just a material that is designed to hold the e-liquid close to the coil to help it to vaporize. On top of the wick, actually technically you have this bridge which is sitting on top of the metal mesh and the plastic coil housing, but this bridge has sitting on top of it some more metal mesh, and this metal mesh actually is what is touching your cartridge. So you put your full cartridge inside your e-cig, and it comes in contact with this metal mesh right at the top here, and the liquid drips down or absorbs down the metal mesh and onto the wick, and then essentially onto the coil, and the whole unit kind of works with the principle of getting the e-liquid consistently onto the coil to be vaporized. So now that you have the picture, I'm just going to go ahead and take one apart. Okay, so here we have a standard 510 atomizer, and I'm just going to take off the cartridge, have a look inside, just show you that this is what you basically see when you kind of look in there. You can see the metal mesh at the top of the bridge, and you can also kind of see the plastic white housing near the bottom of it. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a little pair of tweezers. You can also use any kind of flat skinny little tool, and we're just going to start working the metal mesh that's sitting on top of the bridge, kind of work it away from the bridge. So we're just going to kind of slide back and forth on top of it until you can kind of start to see the bridge underneath. So again, this is just be patient and be gentle with it, because it's very small wiring inside there, and you don't want to, you know, unattach one of the wires to the coil, or else you're going to have some trouble. Obviously it's not going to work. So this is for demonstration, so if I destroy this, it's no big deal. But that being said, I still want to get in there and show you the coil being lit, so you can kind of see it working. So again, I'm starting to move the mesh away from the top of the bridge. So we should be able to see the bridge soon, and this mesh isn't going to come out pretty. It'll come out in chunks here and there. Okay, so I worked the mesh off of the bridge, so you can see when you look inside here now, see that metal part, that's the bridge, and all around it is that mesh that was sitting on top. So the next step is going to be, just going to take a little pair of needle nose pliers, and you just want to gently grab this bridge in the middle and just wiggle it kind of gently back and forth until it pops out of here. Again, you don't want to use too much pressure, just want to, there, just like that. So the bridge has come out, and now we can start removing a little more of that metal mesh. We can now see the wick has actually come out a little bit, so we'll show you the wick. You'll notice it's a different type of material than anything else in here. It's actually a little bit more of a softer fabric designed to absorb the liquid. And here's some of that metal mesh coming out along with the wick. So you can see the wick is this material right here. And that's the metal mesh surrounding it. So a little bit more wick coming out here. There's the rest of the wick. So here's the wick here, and this is the metal mesh, and this is the bridge. So I'm just going to work out a little more of this mesh here. That removing the bridge, because the bridge is designed to be used with cartridges, because that's the whole idea, is the liquid travels down the metal mesh onto the wick, and then eventually, or I guess immediately, onto the coil. So when you take out the bridge, you're left with nothing but the coil. So as you can see inside now, we can see the plastic housing as well as the coil. So if I plug this into a battery, which I'll do right now, we should be able to see the coil light right up. So I'm just plugging this right into this battery here, and hopefully when I turn it on, there you go. That's the coil lighting right up, bright red. So essentially what happens is if I were to just show you by dropping a single drop of e-liquid right on top of the coil, you saw how it was lighting up red there before. Now I'm going to push the button and it's starting to produce vapor. See right there. Ooh. So it's a brand new, hot, very nice coil. So typically when you have atomizer, the first thing to go is going to be this coil. It's going to, obviously you can see it's very quickly getting hot and not hot, and hot and cool. And so this procedure day after day after day is slowly going to wear out the coil. And then also there can be some issues with the wires underneath. If you're not careful when you're screwing in and unscrewing your atomizer, there can be some issues. For instance, if I put on a cartridge here and then use the cartridge to screw in the atomizer like so, what can happen is if the cartridge gets kind of stuck onto the bridge or onto some of that metal mesh, it can twist the entire unit underneath and actually cause one of the wires to break away from the coil, and then you just will get nothing. So a lot of times the coil can be fine, but people just become a little bit too rough with the atomizer and just kind of quickly jam it on and off, and you get some issues there. So there again is the coil lighting up nice and bright. And so my next step is just going to be remove the entire bottom unit, and I'll show you basically what the coil looks like up close. Okay, so I've managed to get the bottom part out relatively unscathed. It kind of got banged up a little bit. But here we can see the metal mesh in a circle that's surrounding the plastic housing. If you can get right in here, you should be able to see the wick, or excuse me, not the wick, the coil sitting right there in the middle. So that small little coil is really the brains behind the operation, if you will. So again, you just peel off this metal mesh circle, and you kind of get the idea of the plastic housing around. There we go, we got it. So there's the coil, this little guy, and there's the wiring underneath. So again, this little guy is really the whole operation here. So I'll put these together and kind of show you side by side the original diagram, and then show you kind of what we've discovered here. What's going on here? You have, again, the base with the base, the metal mesh, that surrounds the plastic housing. Right here. You've got the coil right here. You've got the wick right here. You've got the bridge. And finally got the metal mesh that's at the top. So essentially what's going to happen is you fill your cartridge with e-liquid. It's going to touch on this metal mesh. The metal mesh is going to draw it down to the wick. The wick is going to get wet. The wick's sitting right on top of the coil. When you push the button to start your e-cigarette, the coil is going to have liquid on it. It's going to vaporize the liquid, and you're going to inhale it. And then that's essentially how the atomizer works. So I hope you enjoyed this little breakdown of the atomizer. Had to destroy one to do it, but it was worth it for the sake of your enjoyment. This has been Howie for CanadaVapes.com.